October 12th, 1969. Miller's Grocery, a small-town market in rural California. Population 3,800. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where the cash register still makes a mechanical ding. That Saturday afternoon, the store was about to witness a moment that would be remembered for 50 years. The elderly man walked in at 2:47 p.m. He moved slowly, each step deliberate. His military cap sat on his head, olive green and faded. World War II, Pacific Theater. Margaret Hayes, the store clerk, noticed him immediately. She'd been working at Miller's for 12 years. She'd seen plenty of veterans come through these doors. The man picked up a wire basket and began moving through the aisles. He walked past the meat counter, past the produce. He went straight to the bread aisle, picked up the cheapest white bread, and held it like it was precious. Then canned goods. His weathered hands reached for beans, 42 cents. He put it in his basket. Then another, 2 cans of beans and a loaf of bread. When he approached the checkout counter, Margaret saw his hands shaking. "Good afternoon," she said gently. The man nodded, didn't speak, just started reaching into his coat pocket. And that's when the pennies came out. The pennies spilled onto the counter, nickels mixed with dimes, a few quarters. The man's aged fingers began sorting them into piles, lips moving silently. Margaret rang up the items. Bread, 35 cents. 2 cans of beans, 84 cents. Total, $1.19. She'd already counted the coins. 93 cents, 26 cents short. She watched his face as he recounted. Once, twice, 3 times. His shoulders sagged lower with each count. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I thought I had enough." Margaret felt her heart breaking. Veterans on fixed disability payments. Men who'd given everything, now struggling to afford bread. "Sir, it's okay." "No, ma'am, I don't take charity. I've never taken charity. I won't start now." His hand reached for the beans, shaking so badly he could barely grip the can. In that shake, Margaret saw everything. Pride fighting need, dignity battling hunger. Behind them, other customers. A young mother with 2 children, an older couple, a businessman, and standing 3 people back in line was a lean man in his late 30s wearing a plaid work shirt. His angular face familiar to anyone who went to the movies. Clint Eastwood had come in for milk and eggs, staying at his cabin in the hills, taking a break between films. Just another customer, until he saw the pennies. Clint had noticed the man the moment he walked in. You couldn't miss the military cap. His father had worn one just like it. He'd watched the man pick only necessities, and now he was counting pennies that wouldn't be enough. "I'm sorry for the trouble. I'll just take the bread." Margaret was fighting tears. "Sir, please." "No charity, I won't start now." That's when Clint moved, stepped forward from his place in line and walked to the counter. "Excuse me," Clint said quietly. The elderly man turned. Recognition flickered, then embarrassment. "Sir, I couldn't help but notice you're a veteran." The man straightened. "Yes, sir. 101st Airborne. Normandy, then the Pacific." Clint extended his hand. "Thank you for your service." The handshake was firm. "Just did my duty, son." "What's your name?" Robert Chen." The whole store had gone quiet. "Mr. Chen," Clint said, voice carrying that calm intensity. "My father was in the war too. He said the men who fought over there paid a price. And when they came home, the country owed them more than a medal. It owed them dignity." Robert's eyes glistened. "I appreciate that, son, but I can't." "This isn't charity," Clint interrupted gently. "This is a debt being paid, one American to another." Before Robert could protest, Clint placed his hand on the old man's shoulder. "Ring up his groceries, I'm covering it." Margaret's hands were shaking. "Sir, please," Clint said quietly. "Let me do this." Robert tried once more. "Mr. Eastwood, I can't accept." "You earned this. Now is this really all you need? 2 cans and bread?" Robert's jaw worked, trying not to cry. "There's coffee, but it's expensive." "What kind?" "Maxwell House, but..." "Add a can of Maxwell House. The big one." Then back to Robert. "What else?" "Nothing." "Mr. Chen, You jumped out of airplanes into Nazi-occupied France. You fought in jungles. You did things I can't imagine to keep people like me safe. And now you're counting pennies for bread. That's not right. The young mother was openly crying. The older couple held each other. The businessman had removed his sunglasses, eyes wet. Robert's voice cracked. I never thought I'd end up like this. Couldn't hold a job after the war. The nightmares. Nobody wanted to hire a man who couldn't sleep. How much is your monthly check? Disability, $142. The number hung in the air. Clint's jaw tightened, real anger. Margaret, fill a basket. Meat, vegetables, coffee, whatever Mr. Chen needs for a month. I'm paying for all of it. Please, Clint said, voice gentle. My father would have wanted me to. Robert Chen, who had survived Normandy Beach, who had fought through the Pacific, who had seen his friends die in mud and blood, finally broke down in a grocery store in California. His shoulders shook, hands covered his face, and he wept, not quietly. He wept the way a man weeps when he's been holding it in for 25 years. Clint didn't let go of his shoulder, just stood there steady. The young mother left the line crying, but she didn't leave the store. The businessman walked to the counter, pulled out his wallet, put down a 20. That's for Mr. Chen, too, he said, voice thick. Then walked out without buying anything. The older couple came next. They didn't have much, but the man pulled out $5. For the veteran, the young mother came back. $3. She put it all down. Margaret was sobbing, taking the money. Within 5 minutes, every person in that store had contributed. $2, $5, $10. Even the teenagers emptied their pockets. When Robert finally looked up, face wet and ravaged, Margaret pushed the pile toward him. This is from everyone, Mr. Chen. Not charity, gratitude. Robert stared at the money, at the faces watching with love, at Clint, still beside him. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Clint replied. You've earned it 1,000 times over. Margaret was filling bags. Coffee, bread, vegetables, a roast, eggs, milk. This is for you, Mr. Chen, and you come back anytime. They sat in Clint's truck in the parking lot, groceries in the back. I wasn't always like this, Robert said quietly. I was a good soldier, a good man. You're still a good man, Clint said. Robert shook his head. I came back different. You see things, do things. They change you. Normal didn't exist anymore. He paused. I had a wife, Sarah. She waited for me, wrote letters every week. But when I came back, the nightmares? Every night, screaming, couldn't hold a job, started drinking to make it stop. That drove Sarah away. Can't blame her. She tried. Kids? A daughter, Emily, 30 now, lives in Oregon. We don't talk much. I was a bad father. Clint listened without judgment. The VA gave me pills, therapy, helped a little, enough to stop drinking. But jobs never came back. At 73, with shaking hands, nobody wants you. I live in a boarding house. $20 a week. The rest goes to food and pills. And today you ran short. Today I ran short. You budget as best you can, but then a prescription costs more, and suddenly you're counting pennies. He looked at Clint. Why did you help me? Clint was quiet. My father fought too, came back different. I watched him struggle. He drank, lost jobs. We were poor. I'm sorry. It taught me that men who fight wars pay twice. Once on the battlefield, once when they come home. You know what the tragedy is? Clint continued. We send young men to war, tell them they're heroes, pin medals on them, then send them home and forget about them. Robert nodded. That's about the size of it. $142 a month. That's what this country pays a man who jumped into Nazi territory. It's something. It's an insult, Clint corrected. A national disgrace. Silence. Then Clint spoke softer. My father told me before he died, the measure of a society is how it treats its warriors when the war's over. He said America was failing that test. Your father was wise. He was broken, Clint said bluntly. The war broke him. Peace finished the job. But he taught me that if you see someone struggling, especially someone who gave everything, you don't look away. You help. Most people don't think that way. Most people don't stop to think at all. They see a problem and turn away because it's uncomfortable. But that's cowardice. Real courage isn't charging a machine gun nest. Real courage is looking at injustice and refusing to accept it. Robert was quiet. What you did wasn't just about helping me, was it? What do you mean? You could have helped quietly, but you made it public. Why? A slight smile. Because maybe some of those people will remember. Maybe next time they see a veteran struggling, they won't look away. Someone in the store had called the local newspaper. By Monday morning, the story was on the front page. Hollywood star helps local veteran. The article described the scene. Robert's struggle, Clint's intervention, the spontaneous generosity. By Tuesday, Associated Press. By Wednesday, national news. Letters started arriving, hundreds, from veterans thanking Clint, from civilians ashamed they hadn't done more, many containing checks. These are for Mr. Robert Chen, for his service. Within 2 weeks, over $15,000 had been sent. The paper set up a trust fund. Robert would never have to count pennies again. But the impact went further. 3 towns over, a grocery store started a program. Veterans never pay. Any veteran could get basic groceries free once a month. Other stores followed. Within 6 months, 23 stores in California. Within a year, other states. The VA took notice. The public attention forced them to re-examine veteran benefits. It didn't change overnight, but it started conversations. In Miller's grocery, Margaret Hayes kept a photo on the wall, taken that Saturday. Robert counting pennies, head bowed. Clint standing beside him, hand on shoulder. Other customers, tears on faces. Under the photo, the day we remembered what gratitude looks like. Every veteran who came into Miller's after that got a discount. Not charity, a discount. For your service. Robert Chen lived another 8 years. He moved into a small apartment, paid for by the fund. He reconnected with his daughter Emily. She brought her children. He became a grandfather who could afford ice cream. He attended veterans gatherings, spoke at schools about the war, finally talked about things he'd buried for decades. The speaking helped. When he died in 1977, his funeral was packed. Clint Eastwood was there, sitting quietly in the back. Dozens of veterans Robert had befriended, and ordinary people from the community. Emily spoke at the service. Clint Eastwood didn't just buy my father groceries, he gave him back his dignity, and that changed everything. After the service, Clint stood with Emily outside the church. "Thank you," she said, "for seeing him, for seeing past the shaking hands to the man underneath." "Your father was easy to see," Clint replied, "once you knew where to look." "I don't think most people look." "No, they don't, but maybe they should." Years later, Clint rarely talked about that day. When asked, he'd shrug it off. "I just paid for some groceries." But that wasn't true. Most people wouldn't have. Most would have looked away, uncomfortable with the raw display of poverty and pride. Clint noticed, and in noticing, he reminded an entire community what they'd forgotten. Gratitude isn't just words, it's action. Today, there's a plaque in Miller's grocery, new ownership now. Margaret retired, but they kept the photo and plaque, and the veteran discount. This is where it started, they tell people, where one man remembered what service means. The story has been told and retold, written about in magazines, discussed in classrooms, cited by veteran advocacy groups. It's a reminder that there are 2 types of heroism, the kind on battlefields, in moments of chaos and fire, and the kind in grocery stores, when someone sees suffering and chooses to act. Robert Chen showed the first kind. Clint Eastwood showed the second. Together, they taught a generation something important about the cost of freedom and the price of indifference. Every veteran who struggles to pay rent, who counts change for food, who can't afford medications, is Robert Chen. They gave everything and came home to a country that moved on. And every person who sees that struggle and looks away is failing the same test that grocery store passed in October 1969. Clint Eastwood didn't do anything extraordinary that day. He didn't save a life. He didn't stop a war. He bought groceries for a man who couldn't afford them. But in doing so, he reminded everyone that ordinary moments can be extraordinary, that seeing people, really seeing them, is a form of heroism too. The pennies on the counter added up to 93 cents. But the lesson was worth infinitely more. Gratitude without action is just words, and words never bought bread for anyone. Robert Chen taught us what sacrifice looks like. Clint Eastwood taught us what gratitude looks like. The rest is up to us.